The ruins of Kareth Station floated silently against the backdrop of a shattered moon. Smoke curled from fractured hulls, and flickering lights cast jagged shadows over debris-strewn corridors. It was a graveyard of machinery, a testament to war and the arrogance of sentient empires. Amid the wreckage, Dina Vares, a Telerian scientist, stumbled over twisted metal. Her lab coat, singed and torn, hung loosely on her frame. Her breaths came in shallow gasps, each one laced with fear and exhaustion. She had been cornered, trapped by the Morgan Raiders, a notorious mercenary faction known for their ruthlessness and flair for theatrics. A shadow moved across the corridor ahead. Dina froze, heart hammering. She didn't need to see them clearly. She knew the sound of the boots, the metallic clink of weaponry. She had no weapons, no friends, no escape. "Please just make it quick," she whispered, voice trembling. Her words barely echoed in the empty station, but they carried enough weight to draw the attention of the human standing before her. Lieutenant Kieran Hale of the Interstellar Accord had been sent to investigate the remnants of Kareth Station. He had tracked the Morgan Raiders through a web of intelligence, hoping to intercept stolen research before it could be weaponized. But the station had been a trap. Hale's arrival coincided with the Raiders' ambush, leaving him isolated with the scientist. He froze, unsure how to respond. The human instinct to protect wrestled with caution. The corridors were littered with danger, and one wrong move could trigger an explosion in the unstable reactor core nearby. Dina's eyes met his, wide and desperate. In that instant, she wasn't a Telerian scientist. She was a living signal pleading for rescue. The beginning, the choice. Kieran's training screamed at him to hold fire, to assess the situation. His hands hovered over his sidearm, mind racing through tactical options. But then he realized he could do something no one expected. He didn't raise his weapon. He didn't charge. Instead, he stepped forward with deliberate slowness, voice calm and low. "Dina, trust me," he said. The Morgan Raiders laughed from the shadows. One of them, a hulking figure with cybernetic limbs, stepped forward, holding a plasma whip coiled like a predator. "The human freezes at the right moment," the Raider sneered. "How quaint. Hand her over." Kieran didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device, an EMP pulse emitter, rigged to short-circuit electronics within a 20-meter radius. Not lethal, but devastating enough to disable energy weapons. "Now," he whispered, and pressed the trigger. A pulse surged through the corridor. The Raider's whip sizzled and went limp, sparks flying. The lights flickered and died. For a heartbeat, the entire station went silent. Dina gasped. She had expected violence, maybe even death. But not this. Kieran grabbed her hand. "We move fast. Don't look back." The middle, through fire and shadows. The corridors of Kareth Station were a labyrinth of hazards. Broken pipes spewed scalding steam. Holographic projectors flickered, casting ghostly images of ships and explosions. Dina clung to Hale, her trust fragile, but growing with every step. "How do you know this will work?" she asked, voice quivering. "I don't," he admitted. "I'm counting on instinct." They reached the main engineering deck, only to find 2 more raiders waiting. One fired, but Kieran had anticipated it. Using debris for cover, he flipped a panel, sending a cascade of sparks onto the floor. The raiders slipped, cursed, and Kieran dragged Dina past them into a maintenance shaft. The shaft twisted and turned, forcing them to crawl. Water dripped from broken pipes, soaking them through. Dina's exhaustion was evident, but she pushed on, driven by the human at her side and the impossible hope of survival. When they emerged into a large observation deck, the shattered moons framed the horizon. It was breathtaking, but there was no time to admire it. A massive airlock loomed ahead, their exit point, but the control panel was fried. Kieran knelt, working with tools he carried in a small bag. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and Dina watched, holding her breath. "Almost there," he muttered. Suddenly, a third raider appeared, weapon raised. Dina screamed, and Kieran acted. Instead of shooting, he grabbed a hanging pipe and swung it like a club, knocking the raider off balance. The man stumbled, caught on a railing, and Kieran pulled him back down, holding him pinned until the device shorted the raider's systems. Dina stared in awe. He hadn't fired a single lethal shot. Yet he had disarmed, subdued, and protected with precision. You didn't have to do it that way," she whispered. "I did it because I could," he replied. Sometimes the unthinkable isn't cruelty, it's restraint. The turning point, crossing the threshold. With the raiders temporarily disabled, they reached the airlock. Kieran tapped the console. The lock hissed open, and a vacuum tube extended to a waiting transport craft. Dina hesitated at the threshold, torn between relief and fear. "Go," he urged. "I'll cover you."
"No."
"I'm not leaving you here," she shouted. Kieran shook his head. "If we both stay, we die. Go." Her hands trembled as she stepped onto the tube. Hale followed a heartbeat later, using a combination of momentum and magnetic boots to navigate the exposed outer hull. The station groaned, a low rumble that sounded like the world itself was grieving. They reached the transport, and Dina collapsed into a seat, gasping. Hale secured the hatch and powered up the engines. Outside, Carith Station shimmered with fire and shadow, a monument to what could have been their grave. "You did the unthinkable," she said, finally able to speak, voice raw. "I just did what needed to be done," he replied, eyes on the horizon. "You didn't kill them," she added. "You could have. You saved lives." "Sometimes the hardest choice isn't taking a life," he said quietly. "It's choosing to protect even when you could destroy." The ending, aftermath, and reflection. Days later, they landed on Aurelia Prime, a Concord-controlled world where survivors were regrouping. Dina was reunited with her team, and Hale debriefed with the court officials. Though the station was lost, the research she carried remained intact. More importantly, she was alive. In private, Dina turned to Hale, eyes filled with gratitude and curiosity. "You acted differently than anyone else would have," she said. "Maybe," he admitted, "or maybe it's just how humans think. Sometimes the unthinkable is the right thing." Their bond, forged under pressure and fear, grew over the weeks. Together, they coordinated rescue missions for other stranded scientists and civilians, using the lessons learned at Carith Station. Each success strengthened not only the Accord's position, but also the trust between the Tellurian and the human. When the Council of the Accord formally recognized their heroism, Dina spoke first. "Lieutenant Hale didn't just save me," she said. "He saved all of us, without taking a life unnecessarily. That is the unthinkable act I never expected from a human." Hale smiled, quiet and understated. "Sometimes it's not about what you expect. It's about what you choose." The horizon stretched endlessly beyond Aurelia Prime. Ships prepared for exploration, research, and defense. Dina and Hale stood side by side, ready to face whatever the galaxy would throw at them next. The unthinkable had become their standard, and they would face it together.